Hello, thank you for joining us today. We're going to discuss study skills and time management. My name is Melissa Kelly, and I'm the Student Support Coordinator for the Online Multidisciplinary Studies program. And I am here today with Raishira Dilly.
Hello, everyone. I am the Developmental Advising Specialist for the Multidisciplinary Studies program online as well.
Right, we're going to get started now. And on the agenda is study skills, time management, note-taking for academic success, and test-taking strategies. Study skills. What are study skills? They are a student's approach to applied learning. This can encompass many things, including effective reading and concentration techniques. This plays into choosing a quiet environment. I know when I was in school, if I did not have a quiet environment, I could not concentrate very well. I would wind up reading the same pages over and over again because I wasn't concentrating and I couldn't grasp the concept. You also have to manage your time well. I know many of our students are non-traditional adult students, and you have other responsibilities such as jobs, family responsibilities, community responsibilities. We are also going to have a note-taking section here in a moment, and we are also going to talk about keeping organized and writing down assignments. And it's also very important to read the assigned pages. Your instructors give you those assigned readings for a reason. That's where they're pulling their assignment material. That's where they're pulling their test questions, etc. So it is very important to read those assigned pages. And at the end, we're going to talk about preparing for your test. There are special study skills that you utilize in preparation for a test or exam. First, we're going to start off by talking a little bit about time management. And the favorite way that I would suggest to manage your time beginning at the first part of the semester is to take your syllabus from each course and write down in a planner or a calendar or an electronic device all of your assignments that are and your exams, everything that's due. This is going to allow you to see the big picture because you may not realize, unless you put everything into a central location, that you might have a communications test on the same week as a big English paper is due. If you write everything down in a centralized location, then you'll be able to look ahead and plan your time accordingly. And that's very important that you plan your schedule and you set a time to study. You all know when you have to work or when you have to take care of your children and their other extracurricular activities. I know some of my students actually set a time to study after their children have gone to bed. That gives you some quiet time so that you can focus on your schoolwork. Color coding is also very important. Especially if you have multiple classes within the same subject. I have a lot of students taking more than one of the child development minors. Sometimes you wind up with a lot of those courses at the same time. You don't want to get those confused, so color code your different courses. Use your mind when it's free. Carry work with you when you have a few moments of unexpected time. An example that I like to use is write down your notes on note cards. Index cards are easily portable. You can throw them in your purse, put them in your pocket. They're lightweight. If you're at your kid's baseball game in between innings, you can pull them out and review a couple of them. You won't believe how those little moments of studying add up. When you pull everything out to study for your exam, you'll find out that you are a lot more prepared than you realize just by utilizing those free moments. Take a time out, reward yourself with several short breaks. This especially goes into play when you are studying or writing a paper in large amounts of time, several hours at a time. After a while, things are going to start to blur together, all sound the same, your writing may become repetitive. So to avoid all of that, if you take maybe a 10 to 15 minute break every hour or two, and refresh yourself and come back and reread what you've just written, that is going to help to reinforce what you're learning, and also to make sure that what you are writing, if you're writing a paper, is making sense. Learning in several small sessions rather than one continuous stretch increases comprehension. So if you utilize that planner and you looked ahead and you started studying for your exam several days beforehand, you're going to increase your comprehension and you won't wind up having to cram all night for that exam. I'm going to turn this over to Raishira now to talk to you about note-taking.
Hello, everyone, and thanks again for joining us. I just wanted to start off this portion of our webinar with a note-taking question. Students who review lecture and/or reading materials within an hour after class still remember what percentage of it 24 hours later? Is it A, 40 to 50%, B, 50 to 60%, C, 60 to 70%, or D, 70 to 80%? And I'll just give you a moment to think about that for just a second. The answer actually is B, 53%. There are actually some very effective ways to keep your notes organized. The first technique is simply a heading. Putting a heading at the top of your pages. This can indicate the date, the class, the main topic that your instructor is covering, and it's going to make the class much easier for you to find that information later when you're looking for it. Usually a good heading will make the page itself easier to find, but also it keeps your notes in order so that you can move on to the second technique. Number two is using a subheading. And that's just another main point or a subpoint underneath your larger heading. The subheading indicates that there's a subtopic. And again, it does make it easier for you to find your notes when you have a specific concept that you're learning and that you need to recall at a later time. Moving into technique number three, and that's just simply numbering your pages. Keeping your notes organized with page numbers, again, will help you to recall where a certain heading is, where a certain subtopic is, and then, of course, you can keep your binders and your notebooks and things like that in order with your page numbers, and you won't mix up your information. All of your material will stay intact so that you can recall it later. Organize and effective notes. Here we're going to discuss the 5 R's. Number 1 is record. Number 2, reduce. Number 3, recite. Number 4, reflect. And number 5 is review. Recording your notes. When you record your notes, you're basically just jotting down the important information that's in the body of the lectures or the reading materials. So these are really just your main ideas. You want to be able to skim through the text that you're reading so that you can get the topics, the subheadings, the headings. That way you can notice how your texts are organized. There's no need for you to write every word. Here's where you're able to just simply write down the most important, relevant information. And wherever possible, it's probably the best idea to simply put things in your own words. The best way to do that is to paraphrase. In today's day and age, we're in a digital world. Everyone's texting and using smaller mobile devices. So putting things in your own words, particularly when it comes to your schoolwork, would be very beneficial for you to help, one, reduce your notes. And you're, again, putting them into short phrases, pictures, diagrams, those types of things. It's really just a clarification of your main points. I, for one, when I was in college, I used to write in my textbooks. I had encouraged my students to also do so. And in doing that, you're also pulling out some of those main ideas. I always had highlighters of every color so that I can highlight the main topics, come down into the body of the work. As I was taking notes, I would use a pencil and then switch to a pen. And that's the way that I was able to pull out all of the main points to keep in line with what the instructor was talking about. And of course, what's going to be on the tests. And in doing that, you can also indicate the questions that you need to research. You can delineate your questions in your notes with smiley faces, arrows, stars, whatever it is that you need to use to be able to identify your main points. Recite. You can connect new ideas to old ones for a better chance at recall. And this is where you're going to make logical connections to better recall that information. You can build your background by using images to support what you're trying to remember. And here you can also make artificial connections to recall information. Again, you may be sitting next to a Mr. Waters, or you may have met someone by that name. And then you remember, there was running water when I heard that gentleman's name. So perhaps then you can associate his name with the fact that you heard running water or with a faucet that runs. So these are the simple little things that you can do to make those connections to recall information. You can also use mnemonics. I personally love mnemonics. I have a musical background, so I really enjoy singing. So I use music to help me recall important information, dates, times, those types of names, those types of things. So definitely use rhymes or silly sentences. And one example I think we all know is the color of the rainbow. And the way that we learned it was Roy G. Biv. And so red, orange, yellow, green, blue, indigo, and violet lets us know the colors of the rainbow. So just use those to your advantage. Figure out what works for you and use that to recite your information. Recitation also forces you to think about what you've read or heard. Um, Allow memories to gel. I mean, sometimes it takes a while before what you've learned becomes a part of your memory. So your memory needs time to consolidate that information. So be sure that if you're reciting, again, you're getting it to gel in your head, and you'll be able to recall it again at a later time. Reflect. Reflect on the meanings, the context, the themes, ideas, and theories of the work that you're doing. You can reflect on questions to ask your instructors later, particularly if you've noted them in some type of way. If you pulled out or you've checked off in your notes the important parts that you want to discuss, or you want someone to help review with you, this is the time to now reflect on that work. And of course, review. Here's where you're going to just simply review and summarize the main ideas from the lecture. You can put that information into a summary box. And then again, you can use this to have someone quiz you on your notes. You can quiz yourself. Melissa had mentioned if you have some free time, perhaps, in between your children's games, or if you're at a meeting, and if you have a little bit of time to look on note cards and things like that, now's the time to review that information. But you want to ask yourself, will your notes really help you to remember and understand the material and be better prepared for the exam? So if you can answer yes to those questions and you feel pretty confident that you've taken sufficient notes, I think you all will do just fine. I'm going to turn this back over to Melissa, and she's going to continue with the presentation on test anxiety.
Almost everyone at some point in time has probably had a little bit of test anxiety, myself included. And a way to prevent test anxiety is to stay on top of your coursework. When the time comes to focus on an exam, you can actually harm your performance if you have to spend time getting caught up. So if you're organized, like we discussed earlier, then that will help you in the long run. And this means keeping yourself organized not only means staying on top of your coursework, but keeping your notes organized. And Raishira talked to you a little bit about that just a moment ago. So if you have to waste time going back and digging through your notes and trying to find what you are looking for, then that's precious time that could have been spent studying. Organize your time with your schedule. So not only are your materials needed to be organized, your time actually needs to be organized as well. Develop a schedule and use a calendar to set time aside for studying. We talked about earlier using that planner or calendar, and that allows you to look ahead and plan out your time. If you know you have multiple things due in 1 week, you can get a jump start on that the week before. And like I said, organize your notes and create summary sheets with exactly what you need to learn. So when the time comes, you can just pull those and study straight from those notes. We all know that cramming is not the most ideal thing to do when it comes to test taking, but sometimes life happens and you find yourself in a situation where you actually need to cram. If that happens, you need to do it systematically, and you need to limit the information that you're attempting to commit to memory. You're not going to be able to remember everything from the entire semester in one night. So you need to pick out what is the most important things and devote the bulk of your time to reciting what you've chosen to remember. Prepare yourself mentally. When you go into that exam, tell yourself that I can do this, I'm going to do well. See yourself getting an A on that. Maintaining that positive attitude will help you in the long run. You also need to learn to relax. So before your test begins, go ahead and take a deep breath. Shake out your shoulders and your arms. Try to calm yourself down. Go into the test well rested. It's a proven fact that students that get a good night's sleep prior to a test will do better on the exam. And if you have prepared yourself, you won't have to waste that time staying up all night cramming. Stay relaxed during the test. During the test, if you find yourself getting nervous, maybe close your eyes, take a deep breath, count to 10, calm yourself down. As a former teacher, I know the importance of reading test directions. I've seen many students over the years that have gotten questions wrong because they did not take the time to read the directions. Examine the entire test to see how much you have to do and how much time is given. So if you have 30 questions due in 30 minutes, then you know you have about 1 minute per test question and you need to stay on task. Break it down into parts that become manageable. Don't look at the entire picture and then get really stressed out. If you know that you have 30 questions in 30 minutes, break it down into 3 sets of 10. So after you do your first 10 questions, look at the clock. Are you within 10 minutes? If it's taken you longer than 10 minutes, you know you're going to need to speed up. If you have taken less than 10 minutes, you know that you have some time to spare. You can slow down a bit, or you will have time at the end to go back and review. Avoid spending so much time on one item that you have little time for other test items. Now, this is very important because if you don't know the answer to something and you're there staring at the question, that time is ticking away. And many of your exams may be timed. So you don't want to spend all your time on that one question. If at all possible, skip that and then come back and answer it at the end. If you do not have the ability with the electronic exams to go back and answer it at the end, make an educated guess and move on. Planning your time is important, so we've already discussed how that plays into not only preparation for your test, but also when you get into the test. This concludes our webinar on study skills and time management. You will see on the screen in front of you some additional resources for you to get other study skills and time management tips. And you can always call Raishira or myself for more information. Thank you and good luck in your courses.